The Kremlin was unusually quiet that evening. Snow pressed against the windows, muffling the city outside, while inside, the corridors echoed with the faint shuffle of boots. A few officials lingered near the ministry offices, speaking in hushed tones. Their voices were soft, almost inaudible, but in the world of Stalin, even a whisper could carry immense weight. Unseen by them, Stalin's gaze, or so it seemed, was everywhere. Whether through spies, loyal aides, or simply intuition honed by years of paranoia, the dictator knew when someone spoke where they shouldn't. One officer leaned closer to another. "Do you think the orders will—" He never finished. A shadow fell across the hallway, and the air seemed to thicken. Moments later, a messenger hurried into Stalin's office, a report clutched in his hands. "Comrade Stalin," he said, voice trembling. Some officers were whispering in the hallway outside. About the operation, Stalin's eyes narrowed. He did not rise. He did not shout. He simply leaned forward, his fingers steepled on the desk, and let the silence grow. "Whispering," he murmured, almost to himself. "A dangerous habit, in the wrong room." The messenger shivered. He had delivered reports before, but never had he felt the weight of a whisper like this one. "We will observe," Stalin continued, "and we will see who truly understands loyalty and who does not." Outside, the corridors returned to quiet, but the officers felt it. A presence, unseen but felt, like eyes watching from the shadows. Every step, every breath, every glance might be their last misstep. And somewhere deep within the Kremlin, Stalin smiled. The corridors of the Kremlin seemed emptier than usual, but the officers knew better. Every glance over a shoulder, every quiet step could be observed. And in Stalin's world, observation carried weight far beyond what seemed obvious. From his office, Stalin watched, or so his aides would later claim. Perhaps he didn't need to see them at all. Perhaps he simply knew. Whispers had power here. A careless word could spiral into suspicion, and suspicion could lead to disappearance. The officers who had spoken hesitated in their routines. They moved more slowly, spoke less, and avoided the rooms where whispers had been heard. Even minor conversations carried the risk of fatal misinterpretation. Stalin's mind worked in silent patterns, calculating loyalty, measuring fear. He imagined conversations that might never have happened. Who whispered? Who dared question? Who betrays without knowing? Each officer became a player in a game whose rules were invisible and shifting. No one knew who would be watched next, or what gesture might seal their fate. The whisper had already done its work. Paranoia spread faster than any order, infecting every hallway, every desk, every mind in the Kremlin. And somewhere behind the map-lined walls, Stalin smiled. Not a broad smile, but a thin, satisfied curl of the lips. The game was underway, and the players had not yet realized the stakes. Life and death, determined by silence, by suspicion, by him. By morning, the whispers had traveled further than anyone intended. A single careless comment in the wrong room now rippled through the Kremlin like wildfire. Stalin summoned the officers individually, one by one. The corridors emptied as fear grew heavier than the snow outside. Every step toward his office felt like walking toward a trap. "Who was there?" Stalin asked the first officer, his voice soft but sharp as a blade. The officer's hands trembled. "No one, Comrade Stalin. Just the usual discussion." Stalin leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "The usual discussion," he repeated, and yet a whisper reached my office. "Explain." No one had an answer that would satisfy him. Each officer felt the weight of invisible eyes, the certainty that even the walls had ears. Reports were double-checked. Notes were rewritten. Every minor clerical error became evidence of disloyalty. Every hesitation, a potential confession. The whisper, once insignificant, had now become a weapon. Stalin's paranoia transformed the ordinary into deadly signals. "I want to know everything," he said, quietly. "Every word, every gesture, every glance." The officers left shaken, unsure if their survival depended on truth or deception. Outside their offices, the hall seemed emptier, heavier. Even the chandelier's shadows felt like fingers pointing toward their next misstep. And behind closed doors, Stalin watched. Not angrily, not impatiently, but with a subtle, almost cruel satisfaction. The game was unfolding exactly as he intended. The players had no idea they were already trapped. Night fell over the Kremlin, but the corridors were far from quiet. A few guards moved silently, carrying out orders that no one dared question. By morning, the first officers were gone. No announcement, no explanation. Just empty rooms, polished boots left behind, and whispers that vanished as quickly as they had started. The remaining officials awoke to a chilling realization. The Kremlin was alive with fear. Every glance at a colleague became suspicious. Every conversation was measured, every gesture calculated. Stalin's eyes, whether behind maps or through reports, were everywhere. He did not shout. He did not panic. He simply smiled, a faint, cruel curl of lips that suggested satisfaction. "They thought they could whisper," he murmured to an aide, "but whispers have consequences." The officers who remained moved like shadows themselves, careful to avoid the wrong room, the wrong moment, the wrong word. Even the smallest mistake, a cough, a hesitant glance, might seal their fate. The whispers that had caused the chaos were now silenced. But their memory lingered, a lesson etched into every officer's mind. In Stalin's world, observation was omnipresent. Paranoia was a tool. Loyalty was tested daily. And the pleasure he derived from watching the fear unfold was undeniable. The Kremlin settled into an uneasy silence, but the shadow of that night stretched far beyond its walls. Every officer, every clerk, every messenger knew the consequences of speaking carelessly could come for them at any hour. And somewhere in the heart of the Kremlin, Stalin watched, satisfied, patient, and smiling. The Kremlin woke to a quiet it had never known. Offices were empty, corridors hollow, and whispers had vanished completely. The officers who remained moved like ghosts. Every step measured, every word weighed, every glance considered for hidden meaning. The memory of the disappeared lingered like smoke, curling through the halls and seeping into every mind. Stalin returned to his maps, his hands resting lightly on the table. He did not need to speak. The silence itself carried his authority. Loyalty is proven in absence, in fear, in what is left unspoken, he murmured. The remaining officials nodded silently, understanding fully. No one dared question him. No one dared whisper again. Even the walls seemed to hold their breath, watching, waiting. Weeks passed, but the lesson remained etched into the minds of everyone in the Kremlin. The smallest act, a word, a glance, a whisper, could vanish an official overnight. Fear was omnipresent. Trust was a weapon. Survival depended on foresight, silence, and obedience. And somewhere, in the quiet, Stalin smiled. A faint curl of lips that spoke of control, calculation, and the subtle cruelty of a man who ruled not with force alone, but with the power of fear. The Kremlin was silent. Shadows lingered. And the memory of that night and the vanished officials would haunt every corner forever.